Welcome, everyone.
Recording.
Hello.
Nice to see you, our friends.
Good morning.
Good morning, good day, good evening.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good morning.
Good afternoon from here.
Good evening, everyone.
We had over 1,000 people register for this meeting. It was incredible.
Wow.
Can't get enough of CSW, my goodness.
Not to
Good
exaggerate
evening,
it, please.
everybody from South Africa.
Good evening.
Good afternoon from the Gambia.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon from Rwanda.
Wow, hello, Wanda.
Hello, Pam Rajput from India.
Hello, good to see you.
Good afternoon from Ghana. Good morning from Philly.
This is from Nigeria.
Hello, Jailam Joshi from India.
Welcome.
Hi, Elaine Congress. We are from New York.
Hello, Claire from Luxembourg.
I don't know how, but we are seeing Esther Nsoga's screen.
Yeah.
Yes,
I have some problem. I don't know why.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Morning, good evening.
If we do it tomorrow.
Hello, good
No, I
morning.
will do.
Yes,
Good night.
make
Please
the
call me.
Malunebo Pauline from Cameroon.
Hello.
Hello, Malunebo Pauline from Cameroon.
Another meeting.
Yeah, I
Great
am.
to see everyone. Please put in the chat
I'm
where
Esther
you
Nsoga from
are
France.
calling from. I see Hamburg, Germany. Hi, Christiane. New York. Marlene, our EC member. Mulalo from South Africa. Manassas, Virginia. Salt Lake City. We have a good worldview today.
Seema from Afghanistan, but in the US.
Excellent, thank you.
Great. So Pamela, should we get started?
Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome back, everybody. Are you all rested and revived after CSW 69, Beijing +30? You joined us again, so maybe, yeah, you have enough energy to join this meeting. So
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Agnes from the UK.
Hello.
In London.
Yeah, do you think it's the time for it?
Okay, so now I'll pass it to Pamela to speak now.
Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so pleased to be with you again after the exciting 2 weeks that we had in March. And before we get started, I think it would be good for us to have a centering activity. And I'm going to call on my co-chair, Ivy, to lead us with the centering activity.
Yeah, so I was just in an event earlier this morning and I found it so powerful. Again, I think centering is important to bring our intention and awareness with each other, you know, for this meeting. And so if you could just for a minute or two, if we can just close our eyes and breathe together and bring your awareness to this meeting and where you are now, whether you're sitting or you're standing. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to, okay, Pamela, I'll pass it to you for this next one.
Thank you, Ivy. we have a really special session today, and it's going to be a debrief. And we have 3 speakers, but we will also have about 40 minutes for you, civil society, to give your reflections as part of the debrief. So we're really looking forward to hearing from as many of you as possible about your experience with CSW 69. For me, what really impacted me a lot was the solidarity. You know, in some years we have CSW 69 where there's infighting with civil society. One group doesn't like the other and someone insults another group, but we didn't have any of that this year. It was solidarity. Everyone understands the climate that we're in, and they understand that if we are splintered, we won't survive. So I really enjoyed that. I also enjoyed the personal reflections of Beijing +30. There were a number of parallel events and side events where women who attended the Beijing conference in 1995 gave their reflections and also their projections for the future. So I like that particularly. And I like the feeling of hope for progress against the pushback. So those were the main things that really did have an effect on me during CSW 69 and the CSW 69 forum. Ivy, what impacted you during the forum?
I mean, I think that, you know, although I definitely felt a little bit, this is just, it was my 12th or so CSW, and the energy seemed a little bit more subdued in comparison to other years. I'm sure that's probably the current climate. And I mean, we cannot deny that that has an effect on us in some way, subconsciously or directly. So I did feel that aspect, but I was so encouraged by the number of those who did actually participate and engage, particularly, and we're gonna see some of the survey results, but there was so much activity on our platform. And so it wasn't just about those of us who are here in person, but there were lots of engagement virtually of people connecting and having their own meetups online and things like that. So, and networking. And I think that's what, you know, builds the movement. And so that aspect I was very encouraged by. We heard over and over of the, you know, financial challenges that many are facing. So I think we do have to have our eyes wide open to the reality, because it's not an easy time to be working in the issues that we are right now. And I think that is anywhere in the world, it's a huge challenge. But I found that as like proof of the fact that we're moving forward, and that's why we're getting the pushback we are. So so overall, even though there, you know, so that I definitely felt the two hand in hand. Yeah, and so I'll just say that as the highlights overall. So do we now we can share those survey results with you. I mean, Mads and Beck are here and think they have a slide show to show us. Is that right, Mads?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the floor. I have some results that I get to share with you, and yeah, let me share my screen here.
And for those who are unaware, Mads is our fabulous intern.
Yes, I am one of the advocacy and administrative interns here at NGO CSW, and I'm super excited that I have the chance to share some of the feedback from the survey. So down here, you can see that we had 767 survey responses, which was amazing. I think we had over 12,000 participants signed up through Whova. So I mean, just by those numbers, wonderful, wonderful results that we got back from the forum. So to start us off, I kind of just wanted to talk about some regional data that we saw. So here you can take a look. All of these slides will be posted, so if you want to, take a further gander at these results, go ahead. But we had 110 countries represented. The top 5 countries were the United States, United Kingdom, Nigeria, Canada, and India, with over 50% North American and European countries participating. Right, so that's just some of our regional data. Age and gender, most of our participants were female this year. And a majority landing in the 35 to 65 age gap. Okay. All right, and then the organizational information. So attending the forum, many attendees were a part of an ECOSOC accredited organization. But there were also a number who were not affiliated with an organization at all, with 16.9%. And then organizations that were not ECOSOC accredited were 31.4%. And these are just from the survey responses. 51% of attendees participated for the forum for the first time this year. And many chose to use the virtual space as their forum. So glad that we get that outreach. Okay, forum experience. We had a 4.2 average for the hybrid and virtual experiences and a 4.3 for in-person. So more in depth on these hybrid experience. We had schedule navigation. For most of the part, pretty easy, somewhat neutral. We had a few participants say that it was difficult to navigate the schedule. Accessibility was pretty somewhat yes. And safety was a yes overall, with almost 90% saying they were safe on the hybrid experience. For virtual, we had a similar representation here. Safety was a yes. Accessibility was a yes and somewhat. And then easy, very easy, and neutral for the schedule navigation. As for the in-person experience, again, we see similar results. Accessibility, yes. Safety, yes. Schedule navigation, easy, very easy, and neutral still overtook the percentages here. So the primary goal in attending for hybrid and in-person, we had the top 3 were similar for both hybrid and in-person and virtual, just kind of in a different order. So for in-person / hybrid, most people came to the CSW with goals of networking with other civil society organizations and advocacy, and learning about their area of work or interest. And similar in virtual side, we had advocacy as the top response, network with other civil society organizations and advocates as the second response, and learn more about my area of work or interest for the third. And reason for travel to New York City during the CSW. So for in-person, both UN CSW and NGO CSW took the top response with over 120 responses. And then NGO CSW forum, UN CSW 69 forum, and then invited. So those were our options. And barriers to participation. Lapping or conflicting schedules, none. Cost of travel were our top 3. Just taking a look at these. And then favorite parts of the forum experience. Many people said parallel events, networking and interacting with other attendees, as well as the civil society briefings with artisan fair, exhibit booths, and other as the lowest 3. Most beneficial parts of the forum, as said by the survey responses, would be the parallel events, networking and interacting with other attendees and civil society briefings, and then least beneficial would be the regional caucus, conversation circles, consultation day, and other. Several who had answered other said everything was beneficial. So great responses there. For regional NGO CSW forums, how likely would you be able to attend, or how likely would you be to attend an NGO CSW forum in your region? 79.4% answered a 4 or 5, which was likely or very likely, with a 4.3% rating overall. So great numbers there. Interest in contributing to the organization of a NGO CSW forum in region would be 76.4 or 76.4% would say yes. If we could just make sure our mics are muted. Thank you so much. And I think that's actually all I have for you. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to share these forum results with you. And these slides will be posted, so you will be able to take a look, a further look at these results. So thank you again.
And we do see already so many comments in the chat about some of your impressions as well, and reflections. And today's discussion, like we said, we have 3 panelists today, and after they have spoken, then we will open the mics and also maybe read from the chats if you don't feel like you want to speak, you know. That's okay too, but if you wanted to put your comments, thoughts, we'll try to get to that. But we do want to hear from you, and we will, you know, give you time for that. So just wanted to let you know that after the panelists, then we will do that. But I'm going to hand over the program section to Pamela now.
Thank you, Ivy. And we are pleased and delighted to have 3 outstanding panelists who are going to give their reflections on CSW 69. And the first is Ms. Elaf Omer, who is the Human Rights Advisor to the Mission of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And if you remember, the ambassador from Saudi Arabia was the bureau chair for CSW 69. Next, we'll have Katerina Cavallo, who is the Chief Intergovernmental Support Section of UN Women. And then we will have Vicky Smallman, who is representing the Canadian Labour Congress, representing the International Trade Union Conference in Canada. And we are just simply delighted to have these 3 voices, one from the Bureau, one from a UN agency, the UN Women, and then one from organized labor. So we'll start with Ms. Omer. Please, the microphone is yours.
Thank you so much, Pamela. Good morning, US time. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see everyone here. I'm delighted to be here with you today. On behalf of my ambassador, Dr. Abdelaziz Al-Wasil, chair of the 69 session of CSW. And we look forward to a very nice discussion today. And please, any questions?
The floor is yours to give your reflections.
So to echo what you've mentioned earlier, you said, you used 2 words that really resonated with me. You said solidarity and engagement.
What?
Sorry, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. And yes, so this is something that we have.
You're muted.
Oh.
Okay. No.
Okay. So this is my second CSW, and of course, Saudi Arabia is chair of the CSW Commission for the first time. So of course, my experience within the CSW this year, it was completely different because it's in a different capacity. And supporting my ambassador during the session was very important. And of course, having it be a political declaration this year, not just a resolution. First of all, I've seen a very great sense of cooperation within, of course, within member states and within civil society. We've seen like the overarching theme of wanting to have a balanced outcome, a balanced document, having this desire to, of course, advance women's rights and rights for women and girls. And just having that, again, you use that word, solidarity and cooperation, and that was honestly something that was very tangible and very impressive this year. So this was just something that was well noted and of course, very, very, very important.
Do you have any reflections on the political declaration?
So for the political declaration, we were very happy with the outcome. Document was very balanced. It highlights, of course, a lot of these efforts in advancing women's rights. And of course, we understand that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So it's, it's different. But we understand that advancing women's rights has come a long way, and there's still more work to be done. But however, we are on the right path towards it, and we look forward to even more advancement and more engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Katerina, would you like to share? You're muted. Okay.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, and thank you, Pamela and Ivy, for the invitation. I think it's always good after a little break to go back and read actually with a different vision and with a different eyes what was written. But before I go into more the political declaration, sorry, I just need to say that I'm speaking in English because apparently my accent is giving some saying that I'm speaking in French, which no. Yes, so, but basically, no, thank you. But before I go into the more details on the political declaration, I would like to acknowledge here the great work of the Bureau, and especially the president of CSW. I think the commitment, truly a Bureau of champions that stood there and fighting for the outcome. It's not an easy time. We all know that the times that we are that we have here, and with all the polarization and sometimes misinterpretations, not misinterpretations, but the fact that we, CSW, Beijing +30, we managed to have a strong political declaration. I have to say the strongest of all of the political declarations adopted so far. It's remarkable, and it's very much the work of the co-facilitators, member states, but at the end of the day, also the way the work was conducted, and the work of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in all this process. And of course, I have to also acknowledge the great work of the civil society, and pushing and making member states also accountable to the commitments that were made, and not allowing also to go below what was agreed in Beijing and in previous, and actually going forward. And we did manage to have, and if you allow me, I can go a little bit, because we tried to divide, as you know, the Secretary General's report was divided in chapters. So what, in our view, were the gains, and what were the main points that we managed to reach, despite the intense geopolitical divides that we are facing today. So I would start by you know, the first area was the inclusive development, shared prosperity, and decent work, which all of this includes the 12 critical areas of Beijing, of course, and as well as the SDGs. I mean, it was from prioritizing public investments to develop and expand integrated care systems, the rights of women to work and at work, in line with the ILO conventions, the closing the pay and the pension inequalities and gap, all of this, and mainstreaming a gender perspective in policy decisions and frameworks that guide the development of digital technologies, including artificial intelligence. All of these are very clear, because what I think it is also important to note is that the political declaration have very clear actions that member states can easily identify and try to implement. I mean, then the other area was the poverty eradication, social protection, and social services, where we manage, you know, it's not only just a recognition that the feminization poverty, and we need to address the feminization of poverty, but also giving specific recommendations on how we can deal with this, from creating a gender responsive, comprehensive, and universal social protection systems in floors, the question of the healthcare services, access to those services, the protection and the promotion of the right to education, including on STEM and areas where women usually are not working, to also the question of food security, which is an important area of work. And all of this is also like how we can, this area in particular, together with the decent work, how can we use this also to the discussions that we are having at the same time with the World Social Summit for Social Development. Of course, the other area, it's on violence and freedom of violence, stigma, and stereotypes. It's a big area where, I mean, we member states managed to agree on a call to adopt and funding and implement, of course, the national action plans on violence, as well as to adopt comprehensive approach to eliminating violence given the technology, the access to services for victims and survivors of all forms of violence against women, including in sexual violence in conflict, you know, and then on the area of participation, accountability, gender, you know, how the temporary special measures as a means to accelerate progress in this area. Of course, it was also an area that we felt like there was a gain, and in this part also a clear call and a clear urge from member states to fund the gender equality and the national machine, to strengthen and finance the national mechanisms, and in order, because member states realizing that, you know, it's just not the laws or not the positions, but also how we finance the national machineries that are in charge of implementing these laws and policies, together with the data collection and how we support the evidence-based policy making, because the numbers allow us to understand what are we doing, if it's correct or not correct. How also the question of gender responsive budgeting, because this is the way that we can actually understand how, and it's our vehicle to national domestic resources. Where are we what are we funding, what are we working on, and what are the money goes in order to fund the gender equality agenda at the national level. I mean, and also, of course, the funding and the cooperation with the multi-stakeholder partnerships, the civil society, the private sector, and the youth movements. And of course, the other area is the peaceful and inclusive societies. And we were very pleased to see stronger language on ensuring women's full and equal participation and meaningful participation in leadership in this area, on this in all stages of the peace process, and also on the humanitarian. And also a call for development, implementation, and financing, again, the national action plans on women, peace, and security. Last but not least, also the area of environment. I mean, this was an area that we were really trying to push. We saw some member states willing to push more. We were not able to, but I think member states also realized that the agreement of 2020 was good enough and open and still giving clear guidance on how to move in this area as well. And then of course, the more general paragraphs, and we're pleased with the recognition of the Pact of the Future, the revitalization, and including the revitalization of the CSW, as well as the recognition of the Secretary General system-wide strategy on gender parity, the Gender Equality Acceleration Plan, as well as his strategy on zero tolerance on policy and sexual exploitation and abuse and sexual harassment. So these are, in a nutshell, what we see has the gains and of course what is in there that we as UN Women and together with the UN system, and this is the Gender Equality Acceleration Plan and the coordination role of UN Women, how we can bring together and also how we can support member states when requested to implement the political declaration. We really don't want the political declaration to be another beautiful text that we have and we are all here celebrating and nothing is done. So how exactly this operationalization can be put into place together with the civil society, because civil society also in many spaces, many instances also support member states in implementing this agenda or in their own way of working, and how we come together really to move the needle and to ensure that the political declaration is not just another beautiful document, with beautiful words that nothing happens. And so very much counting on you as well, and to the civil society to point the finger to UN Women to do more and to really walk the talk and focus on implementation now. Thank you.
Thank you, Katerina. And I agree. It's up to all of us to make sure that the political declaration is a living document, that it's something that is impactful and that is implemented. And it's really up to civil society as well as to member states. And with that, we are going to have our last speaker, Vicki Smallman from ITUC.
Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be here today. I'll just start by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you today from the traditional unceded and never surrendered territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. In Canada, we like to sort of have these acknowledgements of the land that we are speaking from is part of the process that we are engaged in towards reconciling the extremely negative impacts of colonialization, the systems of residential schools and other colonial policies that have been extremely harmful to our Indigenous populations. And so in respect of that and that ongoing process, we like to acknowledge where we're coming from, who the stewards of the land are, and really recommit to walking the path of reconciliation together as a settler, which I am. So I'm speaking today on behalf of the International Trade Union Confederation. Congress. We are a global confederation of national trade union centrals, and we, including mine, which is the Canadian Labour Congress, and we work with global union federations at the CSW, working in every sector of the economy. So the trade union caucus, or delegation at the CSW, includes workers from the public sector, from the education sector, transportation, the building trades, industrial workers, food workers, domestic workers, informal workers, manufacturing, journalism, and more. And so every year we coordinate a large delegation of union women to participate in the CSW, and we come from all over the place, although a lot of Canadians go because it's easier for us to make it to New York every year. And at the CLC, we've really developed it as a sort of a leadership building exercise for emerging and senior women trade union leaders. It's our favorite time of year, and even when the discussions are challenging. And the geopolitical environment is challenging. And I will say that given the political context, it was very challenging for some of our delegates who were not able to participate in the end because of some of the executive orders in the states, particularly those targeting trans and gender diverse people were not comfortable crossing the border. Hopefully we can address that through the revitalization process. And many of those people joined virtually. So we were really appreciative of the CSW, the NGO CSW forum and its different methods of engagement, which really allowed a lot of people to participate who couldn't safely travel to the US. So the global trade union movement generally has the same goals for attending the CSW as everybody else. We want to lobby our governments and ensure the political declaration or any outcome documents are aligned with our priorities, that it's ambitious and forward-looking. We also came this year to influence the negotiations on the multi-year program of work, as well as the discussions on CSW revitalization, as we had strong opinions on both. For the multi-year program of work, particularly wanting to make sure that care remained on the agenda, but was timed not to be in advance of really important discussions that are happening at the ILO, which if I have time, I'll talk about. We also, obviously it's the best space there is to strengthen and build alliances with women's organizations and feminist organizations. And that part of it is really important to us. And in general, we want to just bring the voices of working women to the conversations, right? Through interventions, through our parallel events and side events. And we had a range of them throughout the 2 weeks of the CSW. I would agree with the sentiments already expressed around the sense of solidarity, and that really is the best thing about the CSW is finding common ground and strength in each other across and among movements. I would also agree that the energy was muted. I did feel a disconnect, and a lot of it was because of the negotiations, which is where many of us come together to really collaborate, all happen in advance, and that causes challenges for NGO voices to try and intervene meaningfully in the process, right? Really requires very strong connections with member states and between organizations and movements. Fortunately, some of those networks exist, and we were working, and we'll talk about how this helped us in terms of the outcomes in a second. But I do feel that it was harder to find that point of connection. This year, at least for me, but I will say that's probably not the case with all of our delegates. It just depends on how many CSWs you go to and what your priorities as an individual or as a union were in attending. Me, this was my 15th CSW. So I'm a bit of a CSW geek. So that's why I focus more on the political outcomes. I do agree that we ended up with a stronger political declaration than I think we expected that we were going to. And I do appreciate the work of the Bureau and many member states in championing that. I think they worked really hard. And the specifics in the political declaration you know, the ones that are there, I think will really speak to that dedicated work. It also speaks to the hard work of civil society organizations. Because to be honest, the zero draft we started with was not very strong, especially in the areas that we were looking at, which was that first section on inclusive development, shared prosperity, and decent work. And I will get to sort of some of those in a second, so bear with me. So for the union movement, our priorities for the CSW 69, we had 5 thematic priorities along with specific recommendations and sub-themes. So we wanted language, we wanted to really reinforce the gender equality for social justice, peace, and democracy, women's labor rights as human rights, decent work for women, equal pay for work of equal value, and ILO Convention 190. We wanted a mention of ILO Convention 190 on violence and harassment in the world of work. In terms of the first sort of cluster of themes, you know, that was really aimed at recognizing the need to fight rising authoritarianism and attacks on democracy. And we called on member states to commit to protecting democracy everywhere, ensuring that conditions for the full exercise of all human rights by women in all their diversity. And for trade unions, this really does include guaranteeing the fundamental right to freedom of association, collective bargaining, and the right to strike, and upholding the right to freedom of expression. And these are rights that are under sustained and very serious attack across the globe. And defending these rights has become very dangerous for many trade unionists in some countries. But our agenda was really broad, and as the rights reinforce each other. So we also were looking for strong language on sexual and reproductive health and rights, women's role in peace and security, etc. To this end, we had some successes and fell short in others. I was very disappointed that we ended up with no reference to freedom of association, peaceful assembly, and expression in the text. I think that was a real disappointment, despite the fact that we really tried to keep it on until the end. Although it's sort of subtly referenced in other ways throughout the text, but having that declared, I think, was a bit of a disappointment. But on the plus side, women's labor rights as human rights, I think, received fairly good treatment in the end and exceeded our expectations. You know, we wanted to make sure that we had very strong references to rights to work and rights at work, using that language, which is really important. And what we got was promoting, respecting, protecting, and fulfilling women's rights to work and rights at work. But it also referenced ILO conventions, as well as specific measures to enhance women's full access to and equal opportunities in the labor market and decent work. All of this is really good. That reference to ILO conventions has been a tension at the CSW every year for quite some time, but it's really, really important because ILO conventions is where those labor rights are established, and the ILO is the only tripartite arm of the UN in the multilateral system. So that's where trade unions actually sit at the table and are able to negotiate the norms, right? So for us, it's really important to have that reference to the fundamental principles and rights at work, as well as ILO conventions and other instruments. And to have the language reflect the language that we negotiate in those instruments. So we do have language on equal pay for work of equal value and the transition from informal to formal work, which is consistent. And most importantly, the paragraph reinforces the right to organize and bargain collectively. And this is a first for a CSW political declaration. Not a first for the CSW, but a first for a political declaration. Huge win for us, I think, because that right to organize and bargain collectively is at the heart of what decent work is. And that is how we level the playing field with employers and are able to achieve those rights at work. We also wanted strong language on social protection, and we ended up with very good language in 15E. which talks about gender responsive, comprehensive, and universal social protection systems, including floors. These are all very sort of normal things for us to demand, and we've seen them in other CSWs, but in the political declaration, I think it really works well. On decent work for women, where we wanted strong references to the care sector and comprehensive and gender responsive public care systems to boost women's labor force participation, to meet the needs of people who depend on care, and ensure decent work for care workers, all based on the ILO's 5R model. Trade unions believe that care is a human right and a public good, and we seek to have CSW outcome documents recognize this and affirm the state's primary responsibility to provide public services to meet people's care needs. The care paragraph isn't perfect, it's 15B, but because we don't have a really clear acknowledgement of the role of the state, like I would like it really well asserted. But that being said, it is a very strong paragraph. It does reflect all 5 R's in the 5R care framework of the ILO. And it does talk about prioritizing public investments to develop and expand integrated care systems, including care leave policies, the provision of universal care and support services throughout the life course. Very important subtleties in that language. Support, very important for people living with disabilities to have it framed that way, to respect the agency of people living with disabilities who require care to live in dignity. And the reference to the life course is important, and also the reference to recognizing, representing, remunerating, and rewarding care workers. So all really good. And something to build upon as we look ahead to the discussions on care in a few years. Equal pay for work of equal value. I could go on about this. I will not. I will just say that this is my personal Groundhog Day every CSW, but we managed to keep the language reflecting the ILO language. Where we fell short, I would say we didn't get the specific reference to ILO Convention 190, although we did get language which reflects the concepts in that convention. And we also did not get, we were not successful in removing references to public-private partnerships. And this is a perennial challenge in these multilateral spaces. Trade unions are leading the global fight against privatization of public services, which has consistently resulted in reduced access to services, precarious work, heightened inequality, low wages, and poor working conditions. Yet we're not able to really connect the dots at the CSW in these negotiations to ensure that the solutions do not include solutions which apply market solutions to systemic barriers. So that is something we need to look ahead. I would also say that we also had our eyes and were disappointed with the struggles around references to gender, to multiple intersecting forms of discrimination and intersectionality in general. And the removal of the reference to a worker-led just transition from the climate was very disappointing, and I know that other climate activists share that. That's it for my wrap up. Sorry for that to go on, but I would say for the part of labor, we feel like we did pretty well, but at the expense of some other really key priorities. And this idea of balance, I would say, I appreciate it. I will say that it's often used, though, as a code for removing things that had already been negotiated, weakening texts and existing rights, as opposed to finding balance, finding consensus and balance in a consensus document where we look forward on shared aspirations. And I really hope that we can get to that place. I think this year there were strides made towards that, but there were strides made without civil society being part of the discussion, right? Because of the nature of when the political declaration gets negotiated. So as we look ahead to this revitalization, we really need to address the shrinking civil society space and find ways for our voices to be a part of the conversation at all stages. Thanks.
Thank you, Vicky, for that comprehensive overview. And thank you to all three of our panelists. Before I turn it over to Ivy, I have one last request for our three panelists. If you could each think of one word that you would want our audience to remember when thinking about the success of CSW 69, one word. And in no particular order. Just open your mics and let us have the word.
I would say commitment.
Commitment.
I would have to say persistence.
I want to second that, persistence, because that's what was in my mind as you preceded me. Thank you.
I want to say collaboration or cooperation.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks to the three of you. And I'll turn it over to Ivy for our discussion.
Yes, just to acknowledge, because there have been lots also in the chat, if there were any of these questions that could be answered. CSW 70 dates, when would we know? Any indication of when that would be? And did visas impact participation? Now, I could just say, like, in general, like, we of course every year have been hearing about visa challenges, so but we don't have any concrete data from the committee side on how many were actually, so we don't have like a mapping or of that, because there's no reporting to us, since we don't get, it's all hearsay, so I don't know how much, if it's more or less than other years, but I don't know if any one of the speakers wanted to address any of that.
I will just say that, yeah, like we definitely had a number of people who were not able to get visas. And it seemed harder for especially our, our delegates from some parts of Africa. I will say that I will also add, though, that there was one organization or coalition that was doing a co-created art project called Access Denied. I'll see if I can find some links and I'll put them in a chat, because it was really interesting. They collected stories and pictures of people who were not able to attend because they were not able to travel. And it was a really interesting way of kind of visualizing the barrier. And I really hope it gets done again, because it was an excellent project.
Great. Katarina, any indication on dates or?
Yes, the dates I need to confirm, but from if I remember well, it will be from the 9th of March to the 19th or 20th, but I think it is the 19th because 20th is the Nowruz and there are no formal meetings. So that's the assumption, but I need to because it might start actually a week later because of that, but that's more or less the idea. And I mean, the visas, we are very much aware of the situation. There is not much we can do. As you know, this has to do with the host country, and the UN system cannot do or interfere on in any of that.
Okay. And Ilaf, not in reference to questions or anything, but just wanted to acknowledge what already Pamela has mentioned, that we appreciate the chairmanship of Saudi Arabia and the Bureau, and how it worked to be able to successfully come with an outcome. That's not a guarantee at any year. And so thank you again for shepherding that. And if there's anything else that any of you want to mention, give a pause before opening the floor.
Thank you so much, Ivy. And I would like to reiterate again that the Bureau did a fantastic job. Honestly, the facilitators, with the support of UN Women, support of the UN Secretariat, this was a team effort through and through. And we are very, very grateful and very thankful for all the support throughout the process. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we wanted to open the floor to anyone who wanted to share reflections. If there's anything burning that you wanted to ask any of us, that's okay too. But really, we want to focus first of all on any reflections or thoughts you had about the session this year, including the forum as well. So, anybody? Okay, Jean.
Thank you, Ivy. For me, I started going to the CSW in 2004, so there's been quite a litany of experience, I guess. For me, the biggest achievement is having been at Beijing and Geneva, Beijing +30, for the first time after 15 years of work. The UNECE regional report, they included torture by non-state actors, which we have been, Linda McDonald and I have been trying to achieve, like I said, for 15 years. So because the Beijing +30 is related to what the event was at the CSW, it felt like coming in with a success in that way. Because the first time at the CSW that Linda and I and other NGOs brought in the outcome document around the issue of children and girls were victimized by non-state actors was in 2007. And it was never brought up again. So of course, every year we go, we keep trying to bring that forward. So the success for me at the CSW this year was that the Special Rapporteur Reem, she shared 2 videos. One was at the Consulate General of Sweden. She had a video there that they shared with us. And she brought in the issue of violence against women and girls can amount to torture by state actors as well as non-state actors. And she brought it in again when she did a video for a side event dealing with these CEDAW optional protocol. She brought it in again. So for us, after 15 years, I think 17 years, if I go back to 2007, that to have it mentioned and several times was a huge success. And to find out that people were open and talking about the reality of breaking the silence. And as far as the declaration, I agree with what Vicky was saying around care. It might have been a good paragraph, but of course we forget that caring for women and children, little girls who have been victimized, is an intense duty to care and to do no harm. So it still is difficult it seems, for the world to understand that all forms of violence and discrimination against women and girls requires our ability to care. So I guess I move forward with still there's work to be done. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share. And I'll put the links in the chat in case anyone wants to look at the YouTube links. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you. It takes really persistent work, as persistence was one of the words mentioned at the end. And I'm going to call on the next 3, Agnes, Helen, and Olivia, who I see on my screen, to please speak.
Hi, UN Women. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So I've been a gender activist for the past 25 years now, since like I was 16, 17 back home in Freetown, Sierra Leone. But just as me, like so many other local gender activists who like actually supporting these women and girls who are facing social challenges and other challenges within their countries, it's hardly for us to be recognized or to have a space within UN Women or to navigate our way to collaborate, to work with organizations or like big name that are leading women activism. You know, I just hope that this particular meeting will take into consideration my contribution here today, because many are committed, but the few who are just there for the social climbing or for the celebrity status or for them to jump on the plane to go to United Nations or for them who are affiliated with big NGOs or with the government are given opportunities, whilst us that are doing the work are not, we don't know how to navigate our way around. You know, I live in London here. I'm a British citizen now. However, I do support women a lot in the UK here, and girls who are fleeing, like those with anti-modern day slavery and trafficking, male bride. I do that a lot individually, and many other activists are around the world. Until UN Women start to look into those who are actually doing the work and encourages them and link up with them. I don't think when it comes to especially West African, the African context of child abuse, women abuse, we're getting anywhere. And these are the lapses so far that I have noticed for the past 25 years. Thank you very much.
Listen out to me, Clark, who joins us more with the latest on this story and also reacted.
Sorry, but we are hearing somebody, like, please make sure that you're muted if you're not speaking.
The demonstrators have gathered to protest.
Trying to find it, but it's hard to find the person who's unmuted.
I think it's, yeah, she.
Okay. So
Sorry, you muted for, I didn't hear who you said.
yes, I can't remember who was next, but please
Helen.
It was Helen and then Olivia, I think. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ivy. Good morning from Calgary, Canada. This is actually my first CSW, although I've been into a lot about advocacy for human rights. Mine is more of a comment. I agree with Joan. We've done a lot, which has been coming for the past how many years, 25 years now for CSW. What I feel is action. Agnes said a lot about what she's been doing with women in Sierra Leone and in London. But I also have been doing things about, I am from Nigeria, but I live in Calgary, like I've said, and I came for the CSW for the first time in Calgary from to this year. My take is we've did a lot of outcomes, very positive things that we did at the events, at the program for the 10 days, but implementation is what I think we need to be more focused on. How do we drive this thing? How do we implement all the good advocacy we've said, the collaborations? How do we implement it? That is my own take. Thank you.
Very important point. Thank you, Helen. Okay, Olivia.
Thank you so much. My name is Olivia, and I work with the Women Peace and Security team at the International Peace Institute. Thank you so much to the organizers and the panelists for all of your contributions. I have quite a specific question, so if nobody has any thoughts, feel free to move on. But one thing we've been talking a little bit about is that obviously there were no references to LGBTQ rights in the political declaration. And one thing that was flagged when we had a post-CSW meeting with one of our member state partners who was part of the negotiations, and he highlighted the fact that reference to sports was new in the text, and how in some capacities this might be a positive new addition, but then in others it might be kind of an avenue to start especially kind of given the context of trying to ban transgender athletes from sports and protecting women in sports and things like that. And so we're just curious to hear from a civil society perspective if any of the panelists or anyone else has any thoughts on that inclusion. Thank you.
Yes, Vicky, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I will say I also clocked that and share the concern that while there are very serious issues around harassment and violence that are targeted against women in sports, women and girls in sports, like violence from coaches and so on. And that is well documented, and a lot of women in sports organizations have been looking at that for quite some time. The specific reference to it happens at a time where it's being used to attack a very vulnerable population, that is trans women and girls. And I think we need to be very mindful of that going forward. And the fact that it has been increasingly hostile, the negotiating climate to discussions of LGBTQI plus rights and existence is something that trade unions are certainly very mindful of and committed to ensuring that we are working towards a more inclusive and gender inclusive approach and language. And we work in coalition with 2S LGBTQI movements to make sure that that does not get left aside. Thanks.
Thank you for that. So I have in front of me Dr. Remy, Shayla, and Anne as the next three.
Thank you very much. I wanted to just give my feedback. The experience that I had this year with the partnership, I want to commend CSW for creating an enabling environment where you can find other people who are also in the nonprofit space globally. Our session was very uniquely curated. It was a relationship between not just Africa, but with Asia. So the setup was beautiful, and the meetup was created by your platform. I thought that was very good. The topic was universal, so that was very well. And it didn't just end there. We're continuing the dialogue, which is what fascinates me. Somebody was asking about what is the next step? Where do we go? Because it's not a talk shop. It's not just a place to come and come. You come because you want to make impact. And for my experience and the relationship we consummated, I want to commend everyone who put this together. It was my first attendance, and the connection was done through your platform. So thank you very much. Legacy Premier Foundation is the name of our corporation.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And I wanted to make a really quick note that the platform, the virtual platform, which was Huva, we had a little debriefing with them, and they gave us a very long report about our statistics of the engagement. And they work with like something like 60,000 or something different organizations, mostly companies, and these are like big companies and their conferences. And they say that we definitely by far are like the top 1% as far as the level of engagement and the number of people who are on the platform. So he was just so impressed by how much activity there was on the platform and how much people really did use all the tools on there. So I did want to share that bit because they were so blown away by that, it seems. So yes, Shaylin and Anne, I think is what I said.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you, panelists, excellent contributions, and thank you, Pamela and Ivy, always for everything that you do. I'm Shaila Ram Mistry, Vice President of Graduate Women International and U.S. Women's Caucus, CEO of STEM Institute. I've been part of CSW for the last 30 years, attended every CSW since Beijing, very proud and blessed. And I was fortunate to be in Geneva for the Beijing +30 review. the thing that I was most appreciative of is the amount of work that NGO CSW New York and NGO CSW Geneva and the UNEC region did to raise that awareness that something important has happened, that this is a milestone that we have reached since Beijing, everything that we put in place all these years and I worked on at all the reviews, the 5th, the 10th, the 15th, and so on, that something needs to be done. That interest was generated over a period of a whole year, with all CSWs, organizations, experts, members, delegates coming together to discuss the issues, produce a report, bring that to the attention of member states and so on. And as a result of that, we had a very strong CSW 69 this year, despite all the changes that are happening around us. I was very impressed by the fact that everyone was very measured and tempered and temperate, moderate in their outlook and how they conducted business. So the focus was very much on how do we address these issues, how do you recognize them, and what do we do going forward? And as we all know, the two areas that are very important are the areas of women in power and decision making. We already understand how having the right people in decision making is critical, and having women as part of that equation is so important. So finally, about 15 years ago, we had the theme women in power and decision making, and that slowly started creeping to the forefront. And this CSW and at Beijing +30 UNEC review in Geneva this year, past year, we've recognized that, and the political declaration recognizes that. And all of us at civil society, also notwithstanding that every area is important, but the fact of having the right drivers at the wheel will help us progress faster and also enable us to be working together. And the other big issue is artificial intelligence, which is an institutional mechanism, no less, influencing where we participate, how we participate, what we think, changing mindsets, making decisions for us unbeknown to us. And we need to be part of that. And one of the things that I was suggesting or recommending is that we have spaces at CSW while it's happening, just like we have a civil society briefings, maybe 2 or 3 after that, sittings where delegates can sit down to discuss live what's happening at CSW and bring those discussions to a table right then and there and take them back the next day or the day after, wherever appropriate, to give that feedback at public sessions, at member state sessions, at parallel events, wherever. So it's a live interaction, and then we carry that through for discussions past CSW. And I do thank and commend everyone who's worked so hard. And we still are, because we're writing those reports. I'm writing this long report as well, and trying to stay within the lanes of our situation of what's acceptable right now. So that's pretty hard to do. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Pamela and Ivy. I really appreciate all the work you do, and the rest of the team who's not here. I also want to mention the work of Advocacy Research Group, Rosa and Joanne and so many who have worked very hard to bring all the preparatory work to CSW 69 to make it a positive experience. We know there are losses, we know there are things we didn't like, but let's carry the positives forward and mitigate the negatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Shayla, and thank you for that feedback about live feedback during briefings. That's a good idea about like what's happening in action at CSW at the moment. So yes, Anne.
Thank you.
Hi, Anne Davison. I'm Vice President of the National Council of Women in the UK. And my comment was that I was very pleased to see the issue of the toxic online environment raised in so many sessions. It's really alarming, the misogyny, bullying, abuse and violence, and the effects on children especially, both boys and girls. But a third of girls in the UK saying they feel unsafe because of online harms. And it's very much a need for international cooperation on this, because this is being suffered in so many countries.
Thank you, Anne. And Sonakshi, George, and Mulalo next.
Hi, thank you. Sonakshi here. This was a very useful debrief. It was my first CSW this year, and I was able to attend in person. So, of course, a lot of components to make sense of. I think I'm also very appreciative of the fact that the political declaration did try to bring together a lot of labor rights issues and make them mainstream in this discussion and in this forum, which is primarily about gender equality. I do echo Olivia's concern about how not enough was said and written into the political declaration, unfortunately, to acknowledge the discrimination being faced and therefore the rights of gender diverse people, transgender folks, and queer folks. And one little reflection on that is that at least in the South Asia forum that we had in Bangkok in November, it felt like the needle had moved quite a bit on that, because there was a separate caucus that came together on the spot of a lot of participants who came from queer communities, from gender diverse communities. There was a statement that was made formally at the UNSCAP, and therefore there was a feeling that maybe that would flow into the global process as well. But this is a lesson learned, and maybe something to take forward. But just two quick questions I had, if Vicky and Katerina could weigh in. One, if anything from the CSW discussions will be taken forward to the ILC that is also due later this year, given that a lot of those issues about decent work and care work have come in. And the second one just being that the Beijing Plus 30 action agenda was another very important document that emerged out of this CSW. Very current challenges such as gender and technology, climate justice, and peace and resilience were also prioritized in that. So any plans for taking that forward, or any specific points of engagement with CSOs when it comes to implementing that agenda? Those were two questions I had. Thank you.
Katerina and Vicky, or did you want to address that?
I can address the ILC, but maybe Katerina has something to say first. All right.
Go
So
ahead.
so the question on the ILC, which is the International Labor Conference, and that is the place at the ILO, that conference that happens every year, and that's where various discussions have, and where the standard setting process occurs. And the agenda for the ILC is set years in advance through a complex kind of consensus process between the three parties: employers, trade unions, and governments. This year, I think a lot of the gender stuff is going to be reflected in the discussion on the informal economy. And that is where we're going to be looking to build on last year's work on care, as well as the previous kind of discussions that we've had on domestic work, and the standards that were negotiated in C189 as well as C190. So the informal economy, I know that workers' organizations are certainly getting organized for that. There's also a discussion on the platform economy, which will be really interesting from a gender perspective. There's also the second year of a standard setting on biohazards, maybe less interesting from a gender perspective, but that is the kind of thing that we discuss at the ILO. I will say that in general, the struggles around trying to ensure that 2S LGBTQI plus workers' rights are reflected in our discussions, are present at the ILO and the ILC, as well as much as it is at the UN CSW and other multilateral spaces. But 2SL, that the workers' organizations are pretty solid on these issues, but it is hard given the negotiating climate right now. And there are stories I could tell, which I will not in this space, but just to say that we continue to try, and like every other multilateral institution, it is consensus based. So, you know, I think if people are keen to ensure that these rights are well treated in those spaces, you need to talk to your governments and you need to talk to employers organizations. Trade unions we're on side, but we can't do it alone. We're only 1/3 of the tripartite system. So you need to talk to your governments and make sure that they are just as committed to these issues at the ILC as they are in other spaces.
Thank you. Thanks, Vicky.
Thank you. Now, just very quickly on the action agenda, yes, and thank you for raising. I mean, I didn't want to this is a space to talk about CSW and the political declaration, but I mean, the action agenda is somehow the continuum, because what we have, the action agenda, it's a product of basically looking at the reports presented by 149 member states, which was also the basis for the SG reports, right? And looking ahead and see how what can be the areas of work within each of the 6 areas that were identified in the Secretary General's report that can actually accelerate and move the needle in terms of supporting and helping also on the implementation of Beijing, but also on the SDGs, and achieve the 2030 agenda, because there, we have 5 more years to go, and we can't afford to get into 2030 and keep saying we have improved, but a lot needs to be done. So so basically that's what the action agenda is all about. It's about violence against women. It's about climate justice. It's about digital and how we use the digital and women and try to the gender gap and the divide. How we the poverty. I mean, the SDGs, the last SDGs snapshot report is very clear. It will take 127 years to end extreme poverty among women and girls. Come on, we are in 2025. Something needs to be done. So these are basically areas of course, and then the other one is peace and security. And girls are a cross-cutting issue because, you know, it's as members of society and as the future leaders, and how we can involve girls as well. So that is the origin, let's put it this way, of the action agenda. And the idea is to in the high-level meeting in September that we will have on Beijing +30 for member states, also within all these areas, what exactly could be areas of work, what are the commitments that member states or actions that member states would like within each of the areas. It doesn't need to be in all of the areas, but some of the areas to kind of also allow us to give more support also to member states at the country level, but also to the UN system, because the agenda is not just a UN Women agenda. It's this action agenda is how the UN system is also responding and supporting member states at the national level upon request within their. So it's that kind of push to really try to implement the 2030 agenda, and because if you invest on women and girls, that's very clear. You can do wonders, and we can actually achieve all the other and influence all the other SDGs, not only SDG 5, but all of the others. And that was that's what the agenda 20 sorry, the action agenda is all about. And of course, civil society organizations have an absolutely important role to play at the country level, also to support member states in the implementation of those commitments. Thank you.
Thank you, Katerina and Vicky and Sonakshi, for bringing in the action agenda. George and Eleni, and that's all that I see for hands up. And then if there's anything in the chat that I'm not keeping up with all of it, but if any of the speakers would like to address any of that, please, I'll give you a couple of minutes at the end too. George?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ivy, for the opportunity and the team behind the whole thing. Mine is a little bit of observation. This is the third time I am attending the CSW, and so far I have noticed changes every new year. Mine was, first of all, I have noticed there is a very low participation of male in the space. And as we realize that a lot of these challenges that women are facing need to be an all-inclusive effort, both male and female, so that we are able to address these challenges. So we cannot be able to address these challenges by just letting or leaving everything to men. I love the way Pamela usually calls me the male champion in the room. So I think something needs to be done when it comes to inclusivity of male. I have attended Africa Disrupt at some point, and the same thing was happening. We had a very small number of male participants in the room. So if we can consider this, it will be very easy for us to move things to the next level and very fast. Secondly is I noticed this, the voices of children were captured, but something needs to be done so that we make them vibrant, because they are the women of tomorrow. They are the leaders of tomorrow. And if we cannot be in a position to give them a platform to participate as young as they are, it will be very difficult for them to pick up the pieces later at some point. Look at the example of Beijing 30. Not all of us were there to attend the meeting in Nairobi and Beijing when the process was starting. But based on the foundation that was created with Pamela, with Queen Mother, and the people who were there at that time, they were able to help us create a way so that we are able to get into the space. So if we can involve these young people who are not adults, maybe the teenagers or the youth at some point, give them an opportunity to be able to participate in those side events, policy meeting rooms or policy tables, so that they are able to have an input. It will be very easy to implement the resolutions that come out of every meeting because they are part of it. Then this has been said, issues of policy implementation, it is a big, big thing. I don't know what to do about it because every year we attend the meeting, the outcome document comes in, and you try to follow up with government. It becomes a little bit difficult. For lack of better word, there are people who say that document is a westernized document, or it's a particular region, a document for particular region. So I don't know how we will need to put things in place so that people don't judge a document by just having a look at it and it becomes an scapegoat for them not to implement what they're required to do. And then this is now a complement, the whole idea of having Africa Disrupt. I think we need to have more and more of this. I am happy that Femnet is really leading a lot of this effort in Africa, and we are happy to be part of it. But we need to have more and more, whereby we involve the young people and then more women, especially those who come from the grassroots level, like where we work in the slum setup. They also get to air their concerns, their views, so that when we are implementing, we don't leave anyone behind. It becomes a holistic voice that involves everyone around the room. Thank you so much, and that is an input from me, George from Slum Cell Foundation.
Thank you, George. We heard you loud and clear. I am in full agreement that we need more men and boys engaged in CSW. We can't be talking to ourselves. It's a whole society effort to change this. So wholehearted agreement on that, and so many other points too. Eleni, you're the last, and I'm sorry, we are going to be a minute or two.
Okay, thanks, and I'll be brief. I've won many times, and it's been wonderful. I was involved this year in two programs Fordham Institute for Women and Girls, and also one that my NGO did the International Federation of Social Workers, and it went very smoothly, better than ever before. So I really can, commend Ivy, Pamela, and all the people who were involved. But I guess my question and concern, and there's been some mention about that some people, some women who wanted to come for an in-person presentation had visa problems and were not able to come. And I also was thinking about this, when Vicki was talking in terms of her work on labor, I mean, how many of them, might have had issues to discuss. So I guess my concern is about, people, women who just were not able to come in person. And I don't know, and I know it was mentioned slightly, and I guess we don't really have very exact statistics on this, but I'm just interested in that thing. I don't know what we can do about it, but yeah, I'm concerned about the women who are denied of the ability to participate.
Yeah, and we have been told also, we bring it up to the US mission because we are, it is a coming, the host country has to approve the visas, and also that it's at the discretion of the counselor of the country that they are so it's not even like the US can always even with their intervention, it's been there's been denials done in country, of the outside the US, and the counselors make the final decisions on the visas. So what we heard, but the issue is pretty widely recognized. And I think it's brought up every single year at CSW. So it's not going to go away anytime soon. We know that. That's also why there are some there are some voices out there saying that we need to rotate. That's why CSW revitalization process is so important for us to be involved in. We hope you all submitted a written submission. It was due already. It's already past due, so you don't have a chance now. But there was a call from co-facilitators to submit, on the CSW revitalization process, which is taking place. And so, yeah, one idea is if we rotate to other, UN offices, it might mitigate this visa, the participation, right? And we can include more specifically from the Global South voices. Colleen, I do see your hand. We're over time, but if you have just 1 minute, like if it's really brief, I could give you the mic. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. There's a disconnect for me in that I'm very happy to see that, people are really pleased with the political declaration being approved and the wording in it. But the disconnect for me is that there was so much in the media about countries that were not that are backing down on gender equality and diversity. If anyone could just make a comment as to how they were able to achieve this agreement, or refer me to a source where I could learn more about this, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Katerina, can you explain very briefly how that happens?
I mean, it's about solidarity, and it's about negotiations, and it's about multilateralism at its best. And that's what I have to say about the political declaration and how we reached the agreement. And the role, again, emphasize it takes a village, and it took a village to get this agreement, and all of us made our part, and that's the beauty of the multilateralism, and that's the beauty of the UN. We fight, we agree that we disagree, but at the end of the day, we always find a way of agreement, and this is a great testimony to that, and that multilateralism is still very much alive. Thank you.
I like ending on that very positive note. Katerina, thank you very much. And thank you, Vicky. Thank you. I don't know if Ilaf is still with us, but thank you very much for joining us. Yes, hear you. Oh, there's just one announcement from Beth Blissman. I'd like to give her the floor. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ivy. Appreciate that. For people who believe in the power of the arts to change hearts and minds and worldviews, I just wanted to invite everyone. One of the highlights for CSW for me was being at the Irish Mission, and there's a brand new documentary out about humanitarian Mary Robinson. Ironically, it's called Mrs. Robinson, a memorable name for both a song and a documentary. And there are free showings from now until Earth Day, which is next Tuesday, a week from today. And I'd especially like to invite you to the viewing happening at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Monday night, the 21st, which works well for the US and Australia and just a few other places in North and South America. And it's also free to host a screening. So I would encourage people to get involved that way. This is a great documentary that deserves a wide viewing. And so you can sign up for a free account on Kinema and also a free ticket. So please feel free to join us next Monday night or host your own screening. Thank you very much, Ivy. Deeply appreciate the time, and the information's in the chat.
Thank you. And Pamela and I, yes, we would like to close the meeting and open our mics and say goodbye in our NGO CSW way.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, you all.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See you again, Pamela.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Pamela and Ivy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to connect with you guys.
See you next time.
See you next
Thank
time.
you.
Thank
It was a good one.
Thank you. Look forward to HLPF.
Bye-bye from Kenya.
Thank you.